The locals were saying something in the lines of this climate change is as a result of the gods.
Climate change has brought about a lot of issues within the communities, and there are a lot of effects that come about as a result of climate change. If you look at the economic activities within the Nyanza region, the Nyanza communities depend on the lake for their livelihoods. They also depend on subsistence farming. But you notice that as a result of climate change, and the effects thereon, a lot of issues happen that are retrogressively impacting and are negatively impacting on the efforts made by the communities within the lake region.
From our experience, we've seen is inadequate sustainable waste management practices. So we see disposal of pampers, pads, solid waste refuse, and even dirty water in the fisheries, and this leads to fisheries decline. These are natural habitats for fish, which is arguably the main economic activity. So this poses health risks to the consumers, risks to the fisheries, and also ultimately reduces our ability to depend sustainably on fishing as an economic livelihood.
Those kind of things, they have chemicals, and these chemicals are making the water hyacinth thrive fully, because those chemicals are now you'll find half, or rather when you go to the lake, like as we speak, you'll find like there's a section that is green on the lake, and yet that part is not even land, it is water. It is water that has been covered by water hyacinth, which is harmful to living animals in the water. The fish, we've realized that the cost of fish is going higher and higher because we can no longer find fish. You realize that even hippos are no longer comfortably breathing in those lakes. And these are the spaces that they should be in, yeah? That is their natural space. And the various other animals that live in the water are not able to thrive fully because their space has been invaded by plastics, by diapers, including sanitary towels, and various other things that have affected them.
We also talk about issues of floods. In some places in Nyanza and particularly in Nyando sub-counties, there's a lot of floods, especially during the heavy rains. And recently it was very devastating, and it really affected many families. Some families were displaced as a result of the floods.
Recently there was a flood in most parts of the country, and one of the areas affected was Kano. So when you are doing a food distribution in Kano, the locals were saying something in the lines of this climate change is as a result of the gods. Like the gods are angry with them. This clearly shows you how much there's a gap of information on how climate change affects us and how much we can do to stop it from happening. If you put it on the gods, it means that we'll just go and pray about it.
A number of families lost their livelihoods because the farms which they were using or which they were farming were affected, or some were drowned. Some floods washed away their crops within the farms, and this really negatively affected our community members.
Flood is also a climate risk, just as drought. And this has made me, this is knowledge that I've acquired from Andy. Andy has also made us in very many, it has entered in many perspectives of life in terms of giving trainings to PWDs, the person with disability. We don't call them PWD, we call them able differently. They have managed to make a mileage in their life by transforming their economic livelihood.
A number of persons, especially persons with disabilities, get so much affected because when it rains too much, even mobility, movement from one place to the other is difficult for persons with disabilities. Sometimes, for the example, the recent floods that occurred in Nyando in the past 1 month ago really affected persons who are on wheelchair, who could not freely move. They had to seek for help from other people who are equally affected. So the level of vulnerability is very deep. Recently, there were issues of fish dying in the lake, which really affected very many fish farmers who are doing fish cage farming within Lake Victoria region, where our communities live. And this really brought them back and pulled them economically, really affecting the communities and individual farmers. Most community members are still practicing the crop farming, planting crops which are vulnerable to effects of climate change like droughts and floods. For example, the ordinary maize plants are very vulnerable because they don't withstand the long droughts and the harsh weather conditions within the region.
We don't want to witness a society where people believe that climate change is a result of the gods, or climate action is a work of the government. I believe in collective efforts, so I'm asking government to put up initiatives to promote climate education, especially in the rural areas where there is, I can't say lack of information, but a gap between what is and what is not, because they can see the climate change, but they can't make sense out of it. Even in schools, we have environmental clubs, even the lessons, but you find that the curriculum does not actually integrate it, let's say intently, to make a meaningful impact. We have these things being taught in schools, but there's no meaningful impact. We can have more programs coming up so that we can actually shape these children in the education space, in the villages, that by the end of the day, environmental conservation becomes something that is part and parcel of us. Because it's easy to plant 1 million trees, but it's so hard to find 1 million mature trees. It is easy to clean up a market, but it's so hard to find the same market maintained clean the following day. It is easy to put up a trash can in a market, but it's so hard to find the trash can empty after 1 week. So we're putting up initiatives, but we're not backing them up with intentional action to make sure these things are sustainable. So my call to your government is that when you put up an initiative, follow it up and make it something sustainable.